Because there's so many.
All right, everybody, we're gonna get started here. So I'm going to call the order at 5:08. This evening, we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, we're going to move right on to item C on the agenda, which is public comment. Just as a reminder, we do our hybrid approach here. I have an opportunity to provide public comment both in person and over Zoom. We always give priority to those members who are with us in the room tonight to go first. And then once we've completed there, we will ask if anybody's interested in speaking online, you just raise your hand as the directions state on the screen, and Devin will make sure you can unmute and you can provide your comment at that point. Just remind anybody providing a comment, please give your name and address prior to the comment. So I will open it up for public comment in person first. All right, Devin, if we could open it up for online.
I'm not seeing any hands, but we'll give it another few seconds.
Okay.
I think we're all set.
All set. All right, great. Thank you very much. So we'll move right on to item D, which is minutes. So could I please have a motion to approve the attached March 2nd, 2022 minutes? All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Sorry, Michael, I cut you off. Opposed? All right, motion passes. Excellent, then we will move on to item E, which is correspondence received from 3/1/2022 to 3/28/2022. We actually did receive 3 pieces of correspondence, so this was all via the web format, right, Pat? So these all came via our the contact page that's off of the website. These have all been responded to already, so we have closed the feedback on all these pieces of correspondence. Just wanted to make sure everybody had an opportunity to read those and what we kind of questions we've been receiving. Take the opportunity now always to say to everybody who is with us tonight, whether you watch us now live or later, please remember that correspondence form is there and contact form is there for you to use to ask questions to the building committee. Have any comments, thoughts, or anything at all, please use that. We do everything we can to get a full response back to you in a timely fashion. It's just a great way to receive a full, complete answer. If you have a question about something in a meeting that you hear or something that you have heard outside of the meeting, please come to us and we can provide that information to you. So it's always available. So with that, we're going to move right into reports. So first item is chair report. We have a lot to go through tonight, so I am actually going to defer my minutes of time this evening to the additional reports that are going to come after me. So I think we can move right into town council liaison report first.
We are currently doing a survey for the 1928 building. That's online. If you haven't seen it, you can find it pretty easily on Facebook, and I believe it's on the town website as well. There is, I think, another week left, week and a half.
Yeah, it closes April 11th, and postcards have been mailed to every house in town. So for those that live in town, if you have not received it already, it should be hit your house any day now.
And it's just a really high level, what's the appetite for keeping the 1928 building with some uses attached to it, various questions, and then also some potential uses for the auditorium and the gymnasium for rec center type stuff. So there's a series of questions and it'll lead you down a path depending on your answers. So if you have a chance, obviously the more feedback we get, the better it is, and the better the council can plan, what the next steps are. At the last council meeting, we had asked the town manager to send out a report and get our legislators notified that OSTA is coming up and could be an issue, just to keep their ears open in case we do need them with that process, getting that approved. And we did the same thing with some of the reimbursement rate stuff that we've been talking about on that 900 week, et cetera. That's it.
Any questions at all for Johnny? Everybody remember the conversation we actually had a month ago about the Laura brought it to our attention that we had a potential risk around timing for the first item that Johnny brought up. So that was us taking some proactive steps to try to get ahead of that. So we appreciate that from the town council. Other questions? Excellent. All right, we will go on to Board of Education liaison report.
Everything relevant for here. Just your budget went through council, moving along the process.
Any questions for that? All right. So we'll move right on to owner's rep report.
Good evening, everybody. Just three things to report on tonight. First and foremost, we have a few state meetings scheduled coming up, April 6th and 7th. The first meeting will be, I think the first one's the PCR meeting, which will be a plan review of phase 1 enabling plan. So that's an enabling plan that you all will vote on shortly. The process with the state will be to review, do a page turner with them, look at the cost estimate for that. And the goal is this PCR meeting is to get the state to approve us to move forward with the bid process. So to go out to bid, there'll be some comments that typically we'll get back. We'll add those to the documents, the bid documents, and then we'll go out to bid for that phase of construction. The second meeting is a DDR design development review meeting for the main project. So that's for everything else. That's our second crack at the project with the state. We first had sort of a conceptual design. We're now going to review all of those documents that you saw Richard and his team delivered to the building committee back at the very beginning of March. So that process, it's a lengthy meeting with the state. We'll do the same thing. We'll go through the reviews. The most recent cost estimate will accompany that. So the one that we had done for the enhanced schematic design, that's the most balanced budget that we're taking to them. That leads me to my next item, which is the design development cost estimate. The professional team has been meeting, as you know, once the project documents were delivered to the building committee, they went straight to O&G, and O&G had 3 weeks on our construction schedule, pre-con schedule, to go through and create the cost estimate for that. So they in fact delivered on March 21st. We have since then, in the past several days, met several times to go through line by line on their cost estimates, reconcile any discrepancies that the design team may have caught that O&G may not have, or vice versa, clarify those discrepancies on scope and square footage and those kinds of things. So we're following the exact same process we followed the last time around through the schematic design. We'll continue to do that. We've created, once we get to our final agreed upon number between the design team and the construction company and CSG, we then bring that to the working group, present that to them. If there are any things that we need to work on, we'll have value engineering items prepared for the working group to review and go through as we work towards our next presentation, which I guess would be at our April 27th meeting, I think is the next building committee meeting. So that's what the professional team has been working on. Lastly, just wanted to introduce a few additions to CSG's, well, not additions to CSG's team, but additions to the Farmington High School project team. With me tonight, I have Mike Small, project exec, and Mike has worked with TSKP and O&G before. on other projects, and because it's a good time to bring Mike in. Mike's going to play a more intimate role in the process that I just explained that the professional group is going through over the next several months, well, not several, the next few months, as we get into the completion of construction documents. We've also added Sam D'Agostino, who's not here tonight, but Sam's an assistant project manager. Sam is going to help with the with more of the state process. So, for example, we've got a lot of checklists and things that we need to ensure happen before we meet with the state. Sam is going to be instrumental in coordinating that those administrative efforts moving forward. And then as we get into the bid process, there's a lot of involvement on our side that happens, and Sam's going to be heavily engaged as we go through the bidding process over the next several months. And then she'll stay on with us and this team through construction. We see Mike as sort of an interim step while we get through construction documents. There's a lot that happens from now until we go to bid. And so I just wanted to introduce Mike and the team, and so we put a face to name and see Mike more often. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Questions for Mark? Mark's going to be up, so of course, saying welcome, Mike. We're happy to have you as part of the team, and happy to have you as part of the conversation. So we're a very open group here, so please, any kind of questions, ask us by all means. Feel free. Anything else that we need to update there?
No, I think there are other updates that will be covered with the professional partnership committee and design group.
All right, so we will move right on then to the architect.
Great, thanks very much, Meg. Let's see, March 21st, which was about a week and a half ago, we had a presentation to the Town Planning and Zoning Commission. The purpose of that was to get site plan approval for the entire project. There was quite a lot of questions. We provided answers. In addition to folks from TSKP, both Michael and I were there. We had representatives from our landscape architects as well as our civil engineers and the traffic consultant as well. After that meeting, oh, by the way, they did vote unanimously and approved the site plan application, which was a major milestone. We met the target on Laurel's schedule. In fact, I think we beat the target on Laurel's schedule. So it was good. It was very good. We did get approvals with conditions of approval. So there was a review that was done by the town's engineering. There were a few pages of comments. We accepted those comments as part of the approval process, and to make sure that the town staff was comfortable with how we are addressing those comments, we had a working session with town staff to do that. And we had that the 29th, March 29th, and it went very well. I thought we had consensus that phase one submission, phase one plans and specs, we need to submit to the state the approval from planning and zoning. So we couldn't go to the state without that approval in place. So it was a good milestone. But we wanted to make sure, reassure the town staff that we are addressing their comments. Most of the comments are applicable to phase two, which is at the end of CDs, we'll go through that process and we'll check off all the items in the comments list that was cited by staff to demonstrate to them that we are picking up all their comments. So there were a few comments that were applicable to the phase one plans and specs, which we did go through. It went very well. CSG was part of that discussion as well.
I think it's important to know we actually went through all of the comments. Yeah. Not only what was on the enabling plan, but what's going to be incorporated into the next phase to ensure that we had an understanding of those comments prior to putting them into the documents.
Right. So we then moved the planning, the preparation of the plans and specs for phase one only and we completed them and then had them submitted to through CAT, I believe, to everybody in town, including members of the committee. So hopefully you've had a chance to look at them. Because tonight we're going to be asking you to approve the plans and specs so that we can submit them to the state. The process that is required by the state, we need approval from this body, the building committee. We'll also need approval from the Board of Ed, which is scheduled to occur next week. And then we can go to the PCR date with the state that Mark mentioned. I did give to Devin a copy of this plans and specs. Should you have any questions, we can pull out some drawings if you want, or if you want me to do a quick preview of them for you, whatever you prefer.
I think it would be helpful for you to do just a quick preview, I think, for all of us to just kind of see, evaluate it, you know, looking at those independently might be, and having a little context around it, I think might be helpful.
Sure. So Devin, if you will.
Specifications are not the best thing to start
You have the drawing?
I would do the drawing.
Yeah,
The drawings.
There you go. All right, so hold it there for a second, Devin, if you don't mind. So we have here, this is the cover sheet. It was authored by TSKP Studio, also SLR, Richter and Segan, as well as Kohler Ronan. Kohler Ronan, you may recall, is our MEP consultant, mechanical, electrical, plumbing. Why them for phase one? Well, because we have temporary lighting that we're going to be installing as part of the student parking lot area. So we do have a drawing here that illustrates the electrical work that's required. There's a total of 19 drawings plus a cover. And they're labeled as we traditionally do. The drawings labeled C are by civil engineers. Drawings labeled prefaced with the letter L are landscape, and then E are electrical drawings. In the set, you'll find a site survey, which you've seen before. If I could ask you to turn to sheet C2. There you go. That sheet illustrates the utility demolition that will occur. And this is to make way for the construction area, as well as to make way for the temporary parking lot. Down the user cursor, if you can point out.
Just to orient everybody.
Just to orient everybody. Actually, if you don't mind, can I do it?
And just while they're switching places, I just, for those of people that are joining us online that can't see the screen, these were included in the agenda packet, so you've had the ability to see these if they wanted to see them on their end as well.
Once again, for everyone's benefit, this is report Monteith Drive. Town Hall is on the right as you come up Monteith. The library is on the left. And then there's this building here called the Staples House, which is adjacent to the parking lot that serves the library. The existing building is located here. Again, I'm sure everyone remembers. And the location of the new building is here, this heavily dotted black line. So you'll see there are notes here and hash marks that are associated with utility removal to make way for the new building site work and building construction.
All of the utilities of the underground power, gas, whatever might be up there that services the building.
There's even a drawing that shows illustrations that we'll have directional signs to direct traffic during the construction period. That's shown on drawing C3. Erosion control. So we need to make sure that the site contractors are putting the proper measures in place to make sure there isn't stormwater runoff during the construction duration. So this sheet illustrates where those erosion controls occur. There's also an area designated here, a stockpile area. This is a soil stockpile area that is going to be staging for that soil before actual building of the building occurs. They'll scrape off the soil and stockpile. So we had to actually calculate how big an area that would be where it would be located for the contractors to know what to do. Then there are details that are associated with erosion control. These are pretty typical details. For those of you civil engineers in the audience, these will look pretty familiar to you. All that rustling of paper that you're hearing, kind of an actual full-size sheet that I'm going to turn over to Kat and make part of the permanent record. It's a much smaller set than we delivered.
No wagon this time.
No wagon this time. So drawing L6 shows site demolition. You know, we're going to be removing the ball field that's out there. We're going to be removing trees. We're also will be taking existing parking lot light poles, and then we're going to be moving them to the temporary parking lot. So this diagram, these diagrams illustrate all of that activity. The landscape drawings are enlarged because there's more detail to be shown. So you'll see a larger scale series of drawings. Okay, we've spent a fair amount of time discussing with planning and zoning the buffer area that's along the eastern side of the property, and then extending out here to the northeastern side. We are showing a pedestrian walkway that is goes around the construction area here. This is a paved walkway so that people coming to the school, pedestrians that are coming from the neighborhood, and get around the construction zone safely and then enter the school. We also are going to be doing planting in that buffer area. The actual timing of that planting will depend upon the planting season. It probably won't happen until later, maybe in the project. We had some discussions with ONG about that. Nevertheless, it's included in this phase 1 site enabling package. There has been discussion with the school's resource officer and also with another police officer about creating an additional path for driving around the footprint of the building. So we'll be doing some paving work here at the end of the 800 point around the back of the school and into this parking lot. This will give you a little bit more flexibility. I think we talked about this. I think Scott was part of that conversation. So this has been incorporated into the plans so that we are accommodating that request from the police. This gives you a little bit more flexibility in the drop off.
Just want to make sure everybody's clear on what they're looking at there and the difference between some of the things we talked about and that additional flexibility. Does everybody understand how what Richard's explaining there? Oh no, it's basically on the back side of the building. It's going around. Does that make sense to everybody?
Essentially between the building and the concession stand that's there for the sports field, for the athletic fields. That's creating a access for queuing. So if the number of cars starts to back up down Monteith on drop off and pick up, there'll be an additional drive lane that we can.
That's correct.
Add vehicles to.
For morning drop off only.
For morning drop off.
Yes, that's a good point. Yes, that's correct. Only morning drop off.
And I know there's conversations I got on this. Obviously, you can see where this comes around the building, making sure that's makes sense with bus parking and everything else back there, but that's all that.
Right. We are putting pavement here right now. It's not all paved. There's a grassy area there. So that will be paved. There's a little bit of regrading work here where we approach the slope to create that room that's necessary to go safely around the building.
Is everybody good with that one? That's a little bit different than the things we talked about.
So the plan also shows the parking for the temporary parking here. It shows all of the grading. There's also calculations that were done for stormwater runoff. There's a retention area here. But remember, this is just temporary. This will be converted back to a grassy field when the project is done. But this is a paved temporary lot. And there are locations where, well, I'll show you when I get to the sheet, the electrical sheet. So this is a planting details. It shows how many plants, the species of plants that we're actually planting in the buffer area. And then the landscape architects in the audience, there's also details of planting. And this is the electrical drawing that shows where these poles that will be taken from the existing parking lot and planted around the perimeter of this temporary lot. The electrical engineer did go to Staple House, locate where there's an electrical panel that could have a couple of circuits added to it. So that's where the power will come from, power the temporary lot. So those are the drawings. There's also the specifications, which I'm not going to go through. But if you have any questions, what we're asking this committee to do is authorize to accept the plans and specs as well as a cost estimate that O&G prepared. Both of them need to be approved by this building committee. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Can you just remind, I just got a hand raised, but before we invite you to speak, let me just remind Richard, the path students are taking from the temporary lot.
Okay, well, let's see.
A little cut off there, but the best to do this.
Go to another plan. Yeah, so this has a pretty good overall picture. So the plan is to actually, we're going to be putting up a fence here at the top of the slope, a gate that leads to that walkway that currently exists, because we don't want people to run up the slope or run down the slope. It's a little hazardous, especially in the wintertime. So there's going to be a temporary fence installed here at the top of the slope. And pedestrians, after they park their car, they'll have to walk along the library over to on the sidewalk on Monteith, which is illuminated, and then up in this direction to a crosswalk that leads you right to the school. So that's the strategy for pedestrian approach from the temporary one. There's a question from someone?
Yep, Mike's got his hand up. Shouldn't just be a unmute.
Sure. Richard, question about during this phase one, there aren't any, there isn't any excavation or laying of conduit for any utilities back to the future site. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. So that all happens in the basically the school construction phase.
Phase two. This is phase two for the high school. This is what I have reviewed with you this evening is phase one for the high school portion of the project. Remember, the project is divided into two state projects for grant purposes. We have the grant and the project for the high school itself, and then there's the grant and the project for Farmington Public Schools and the locker areas. So this is phase one for the high school portion only.
And is it in phase two of the high school portion that the utility, the excavation for utilities and whatever pipes we need to get them back there, that would happen in phase two of the high school?
Correct.
And it wouldn't be affected by any of these pathways?
excavation of utilities affected by pathways?
Right. That doesn't disrupt any of these places that you're laying down anything along Monteith or anything like that.
I don't have with me the phase 2 utility plans. If there is an interruption, it'll be just a temporary interruption.
Okay.
I can't, there won't be some disruption in utilities, but we'll minimize it.
I guess what I'm saying is you won't be needing to dig up any areas that you've just laid down new asphalt on.
No, I don't expect that's necessary.
Okay.
No.
And then I have one question, and I can't remember if I conveyed it before, Megan. It's really just it isn't necessarily to anybody who's related to the project team. And given that the school resource officer came up with the idea, I imagine that they've thought it through. But I just want to confirm that the school is comfortable creating this access path along the back. I know the reasons why, and I support those reasons. Do we feel as though that creates any safety concerns in terms of accessibility from the back of the building? I know that when we brought forward this plan to build the new high school, we were citing a number of security concerns about the number of entrances and exits that exist along some of that portion of the building. Or have we just checked in from a straight up security standpoint that independent of the ease of queuing, that this still makes sense, or that there are places that we need to create greater level of security for the back of the building?
I'm going to ask school principal Scott Hurwitz to answer the question. He was part of those conversations. Scott?
Hey, Michael, thanks for that question. We actually worked collaboratively with the Farmington Police Department on this plan. So we received the guidance and certainly appreciate all the input from the architects and the traffic engineers and the folks who worked on it from that end. And after reviewing it with the police department, the feasibility for us to one, maintain our best effort to keep Route 4 clear and get as many cars on the property, which is our goal, safely, expeditiously every morning currently. This allows us to get quite a few more cars, and there won't be any ability to drop off. So it's really just going to be, cars are going to be waiting no matter what, which they do in the morning right now. And so the assessment from the police department, who vetted a couple different options, was this just keeps more cars off the roadway and onto our property, but the actual entry point will be a secure entrance monitored by where our security monitor personnel can be. Otherwise, they're just queuing along the roadway and back. That roadway will shut off in the morning once the monitor and personnel, so we'll actually re-gate that off. We don't think it's a good use for afternoon pickup for that exact reason. Students will be sometimes exiting to sports or to walk home and those kinds of things. So that's one of the things we discussed when vetting the plan. So we feel good about that as our theory for the best way to get the most cars onto the campus and expedite a safe and smooth as possible drop off experience over the next few years.
Excellent. Thank you both.
Richard, I don't know if it would just be good for the collective group and the public. What's the net gain loss of parking spaces with the new temporary lot? Just so
I think we lose 24 during this temporary period. Okay. And in the end, you'll actually gain 40.
Yeah. I just refresh
during
everybody.
this temporary period, I don't think it's significant loss.
I think also the conversation was that portion of those spaces that you're losing are the ones that are more anecdotal, but up to the right of the tennis courts, which had been reported just through people spending time watching, the traffic patterns in and out, that they're not always those spaces aren't always full. So Scott, I don't know if that's is a truism or not, but those tend to be less utilized. So some of the spaces that you're losing are spaces, I know, right? hard to say.
Well, if you ask any of our constituents currently, they will argue that point. We are currently struggling
Filling
to
up,
find spaces right
Okay.
now. So we've actually allocated more parking spots this year than I'm told we have in
Oh,
25
interesting.
years.
More,
So
more
the
passes.
demand's there. I have a wait list, a lengthy wait list at this point, and several customers who would like to find some spots. So, but that's including the bad tennis courts. So we anticipate the demand to be there, and it's going to be there. But we're working on our internal plans of obviously, as we have in the past, service our senior drivers first, then hopefully open it to juniors. This year we have several juniors waiting and desiring for. So,
Great. Thank you. I appreciate it. So the landscape's changing.
but we also will be clear in communicating that we're all going to have to work together to make this happen, and that requires some understanding around it. So we'll work with our students this spring on that as well.
Okay, well, if there are no other questions, we'll stop sharing this screen and we'll wait for your
So just for the committee's benefit, obviously this is important information for item G4 on our agenda, but we do have another piece to the conversation that's going to come in our next report. And then we'll kind of talk through that in preparation for that approval.
Thank you.
Later on in the business section, but anything to make sense. I know that's a lot to look at those sometimes, but I think when you see them and have somebody walk through, Richard, I think that's super helpful for all of us.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Let me go on to construction manager.
As was mentioned, we spent the last month or so working on the cost estimate. We've also prepared the phase 1 construction cost estimate, which you guys will be looking at and approving tonight. We've also had a team back at the main office. We have an MEP coordinator that's assigned specifically to your project, and others. George Gibbons, who's your future superintendent, have done a review of the community set. So you'll see a list of review comments that we'll be sending over to the architect. That should be by the end of this week. Obviously preparing the phase 1 bid documents. Tyson Kim Studios put together their set, but there's also the whole front end that ONG has prepared, and just managing these state submissions. I would like you to warn you, not warn you, but by next meeting, the committee meeting, we should be out to bid. I hope. So the idea is we will go into the state. Hopefully we get approval within this time frame, and by our next meeting, hopefully we're out to bid. We will be planning and reaching out to schedule a pre-bid on-site pre-bid meeting with our bidders. Maybe that will happen before our next meeting as well. So just so you all are aware that we will be doing an on-site walkthrough. We'll show the bidders that we'll have answer any questions they have, let them see the site. So hopefully, if everything stays on course, by the time we meet again, we will have said we're up to bid and we've had our pre-bid meeting. So just those things should be happening in between these next 2 meetings. So I don't know at what point we're going to present the cost estimate. Is that now or is that later?
I think if you guys would present it now, then we have the 2 pieces of information.
Okay. So if you can bring up that phase 1 cost estimate.
While Devin's doing that, any questions on what Laurel just presented? And everybody's clear again, when we talk about going in, it's for phase 1. Only we've got a lot of work ahead of us still, but all the plans that we're reviewing, looking at is what Laurel's talking about as far as going out to bid before. Right?
And there are no impacts to the schedule as of this moment in time, right? We're tracking this OSTA thing, and once the application is submitted, we will hopefully get a better update. Again, for the next building committee meeting, hopefully we'll have more firmer grasp on what that timeline is. But this is the cost estimate, and so what we do is we do an actual takeoff of all the things that are on the plan, right? We count all the widgets and whatnot. And then with this, we add our reimbursables. So those are the costs for ONG to be on site. You'll also see a couple of little costs in there for design estimate contingency and escalation, because this is prepared somewhat in advance of when we expect to have bids. So there is some sort of flexibility. So even though you see the 784, 595 at the top, when the bids actually come in, I would be taking that design estimate contingency and escalation. So The magic number for the bid is going to be 845, 898. That will be the target. And again, when the bids received, we'll say this is what's our budget, this is where our bids are. But just because it'll get complicated with the phase 2, it's the same thing. There's going to be construction costs, there's going to be escalation. We're going to roll those up, and then when the bids are open, we'll say, well, this is our budget, this is our cost estimate. So it's not that it's 784, it's actually 845. And then there's a construction phase fee and our bonds and insurance. So at the bottom, we're anticipating, and we're going to call this a GMP, right? Because we're going to need to do a contract amendment, even though we don't have a contract. We're going to do a contract amendment. It's Dawn, let's do it. For this 1,051,000 or whatever the actual number is, there will be a formal document that will then need to be executed, and that's what we would use to submit invoices on. So just to reiterate, we're going to, we're asking you to approve the plans to go out to bid. You're not approving to proceed right away. You will, once the bids come in and we've vetted everything, that's when you'd be pulling this saying, yes, we're going to go. So all you're doing is letting us go to the state to get all that process.
What Laurel said is very important for us to understand. I just want to make sure, say it again, Laurel, what we're actually approving.
What you're approving is permission for us to go up to the state so that we can go to bid, so that we can secure the pricing. You're not pulling the trigger on the pricing yet. Once we've had the numbers in, we'll give you the document and you say go at that point. And by then we will have our DD cost estimate all set, and you'll have the whole picture by then.
Does that make sense to everybody? It's a little, it's definitely something that's important for us to understand when we get to our new business item of approval. So we've seen the plans, we've seen the cost estimate. Those two things are required for us to go to have that conversation with the state. But what we're saying is all that does is say, now, what the state says, okay, tell me if I'm wrong here. This is what I hear. So far, I'm okay. Once the state says, okay, we can go out to bid, then everybody's going to come back to us as a committee with actual number and everything else. And then we're looking at it really to say, yes, this makes sense and we're ready.
Correct.
Do I have that right?
Yes.
Everybody else understand that the same way?
So there's no risk in approving the documents tonight for you.
The two pieces make sense, but everybody understand what we're doing and why they're required.
I think this is a good preface because this process will happen. Yeah, this is good practice, right? For the future phases that the design team, OG, will be presenting to you as we move forward to as we get our way up to construction, full construction documents. That same process will happen again. The state will go out to bid, come back with the bid numbers, and that'll be your opportunity for the whole project.
Any questions or thoughts on what we heard there? Perfect. Thank you, Laurel. Our online numbers, I don't want to forget you guys out. You guys okay there? All right.
All set.
Oh, thank you, Kim.
Yeah, you're very clear. Thank you.
All right. So now we're going to move into communications subcommittee reports. I do it. And then we can, I was unfortunately couldn't make the professional partnership subcommittee reports and either Kat or John, whoever to take that one. But communication subcommittee report, we actually just had a meeting. And right, you probably guys entered as we were finishing up today. Ira's here with us tonight, which is great. So as we're starting to kind of move forward on next steps, we're talking about a communication plan, a lot around some of the impacts of some of the stuff we just looked at. So for parking, communication around that parking. So we talked a lot about internal communication, external communication, how we're going to manage that. I think we've got a good handle on the plan on our timing around that and making sure we get the right information to the right people at the right time. So we're planning around that. We had a conversation around a newsletter that we're going to talk about coming out with probably thinking what time frame? May, early June time frame for our next newsletter. We talk topics there. Again, we're pretty high level here still, so we're giving general information on kind of major milestones, anything we can have on parking to give people an update. So we've kind of some critical information around the project to keep people engaged. One of the things we are going to mention in there, hopefully, as well, is we do want to schedule a community engagement event of some kind, whether that's a hybrid event where people can come and learn more and ask questions. So we'd be looking at that happening post the newsletter distribution so that we can use that as a communication vehicle to make sure people know about that. We also are starting to begin conversations, believe it or not, about groundbreaking. And what that means, I always have the ask out for people who are interested. Alicia already raised her hand, so which is awesome. So if you're interested in helping, we're probably in the next month or so going to form a groundbreaking kind of committee to help us with that process and just start thinking a little bit more about that. I think we want to make that a pretty significant event for the community based on this project. So that's something that's on the radar as well. Website, please make sure you're referring people to the website for detailed information about the project. That landing page that you first go on is also very important. It gives you the timeline that we're working on, as well as kind of our process and where we are in the process. So it's always a good place to send people to if they have questions in the community. If you happen to get any, send them there for kind of high level information, and as well as that that comment form as well is on that landing page. So I guess anything.
No, not at all. Very good.
So more to come. We're kind of, as you'll see, communications is going to ramp up a little bit more now as we get through the process. A lot of detail we're working on right now, but I think we're well on our way there. Any questions or thoughts on that? All right, professional partnership subcommittee report. Yeah, can I take that one?
Yeah, so the professional partnership subcommittee met earlier this week and they approved the draft RFP and fee proposals for structural threshold peer review services and code review services. Both of these are included in tonight's agenda for review for the full committee. This is our typical process where we have a two-part solicitation for these services. So part one was the request for qualifications. You have all scored those. We're reviewing tonight in executive session, then coming out and shortlisting the firms. Those shortlisted firms will receive this RFP, and that is the fee proposal. That's where we ask for their costs for this part, for their services. So again, the professional partnership met and approved it, and it's on the agenda for the full committee to approve tonight.
Questions on that? Excellent. And then we'll go to our final report, which is the financial report.
There's no update on that today.
Nice and quick. Okay, excellent. So we've made it through all our reports for the evening. So we're actually going to move right on to new business at this point. Documents out of order here. So we're going to go right to new business item number 1. As you remember, we are kind of packaging our approvals for invoices at this point. So we actually have a package here for O&G invoices. So if I could get a motion to approve the invoice package as stated.
So second.
All right, discussion. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Excellent, thank you very much. All right, so we're going to move into we're going to move right on to item G2. So this is what Kat was just referring to as far as next steps on our P&P proposals. So item G2, could I have motion to approve the attached draft RFP proposal for structural threshold peer review services?
Motion.
Second. Any discussion?
Just to note in here, there are a few deadlines that are in here marked TBD. That is dependent on motions that are achieved tonight, and then we will fill those in before issuing to the shortlisted firms. And just a reminder to the committee, as Kat mentioned, these have been reviewed by the professional partnership committee prior and evaluated before they come to us. So any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, we will move to item G3. So could I have a motion to approve the attached draft RFP proposal for code review services?
Motion.
Any discussion?
And again, the same on this, few things to be filled in with the dates and timelines.
Just from a process perspective, I just wanted to make sure too that it's clear. We've done, these names sound very familiar, right? We're going to have a conversation in a little bit on the RFQ. So I just want to make sure everybody's clear from a process perspective. We always do qualifications first and then follow up with the chief proposal after that. So that's why we're seeing these two pieces. Make sense? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Okay, so now we are going to move on to item G4 as we referenced previously. So now you're going to have to take that. Just a few minutes ago when we had a couple presentations during our report out. And I'm going to read this very specific language, which is very important. It needs to be specific. You make me read all these numbers, Cass. That's all right. So can I get a motion to approve final plans and project manuals as prepared for bidding and dated 3/23/2022, and the professional cost estimate dated 3/23/2022 for FHS state project number 052-0076N Phase 1 enablement?
So moved. Second.
All right, I'm going to open it up for discussion again, just to make sure everybody's clear. We did kind of did pieces, but this is what Richard just walked through with us, as well as the estimate that Laurel walked through. And again, when we're talking about approval, I just want to make sure everybody's clear. It's approval to actually go to the state to have that conversation that we have scheduled. So get that. Yes. Questions, thoughts, anything else in discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. So it sounds to me like we're all set. If we still need Board of Ed, right?
Yes.
For this. Yep. But from our perspective, we finished our steps, so obviously we'll be moving forward from there. Looking forward to hearing back on the meeting.
Let's see what the state has to say about
That's right. Exactly.
it. Thank you.
Lots of people looking at these things.
Yes.
Many times over. All right, so now we are actually going to go ahead and move into executive session. I need to, yes, sorry. So I need a motion to the executive session to review and discuss RFQ responses for structural professional peer review services and code review services in accordance with the Connecticut General Statute as stated in the agenda. So note, again, to review and discuss RFQ responses for the two services mentioned. Attendance in the executive session shall be limited to voting and non-voting members of the Farmington High School Building Committee, representatives from TSKP Studio, representatives from Construction Solutions Group, and representatives from O&G Industries. We will come out, approval of this motion shall be by 2/3 of the vote.
So moved. Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We have a little bit of a transition here. So Michael, I think you have a link, right? Yeah, so he
Yes.
should already, so you're the person I'm seeing. All the person on there, they all are. All of our members there online that are joining with us. They will move to a different link to join us for the conversation. It looks like, right, we are, yeah. Anybody that was here did leave, so we will, anybody need a break? A few minutes? Yeah, take a quick, yeah, let's do a quick, 5 minutes walk around. Say hello to everybody. And then we'll go right into executive session. We'll come back. So we could do like a 5-minute feedback by 6.
Just a quick note, also, this meeting will continue to run for those, I believe it's on being streamed as well. And we do join back onto this meeting to conclude the rest of the motion, so.
All right. I was right on that border. Yeah. I mean, yes. Yeah. Are you ready? Yep.
Yeah.
So we will actually come out of executive session as of 6:33. All right, we will move right to item G6. Kept threw me off my letters. G6. That's all right. Don't worry about it. G6. So could I have a motion to shortlist the following final candidates for structural threshold peer review? This is Conlin Engineering and Russell and Dawson.
So moved.
Second.
Any additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And any abstentions? All right, motion passes. We'll move right on to item G7. Could I have a motion to shortlist the following final candidates for code review services? It is Bowman, Russell and Dawson, Safeville, and Christie.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. All right, so obviously with that, both those motions passing as well as the approval of G2 and G3, we will then go forward and get pricing and then be back in a conversation around the options on our short list. Yes, makes sense to everybody? All right. So we're just left with G8. So could I get a motion to cancel the April 13th, 2022 FHS Building Committee meeting?
So moved. Second.
I'm going to open up for discussion. Excuse me. Just as there's been a couple things around this, just as this is spring break week. That's why it's coming off our schedule. So hopefully people have an opportunity to travel maybe and take some time during that week. And we did do a validation with professional partners on this, make sure that we're not going to force any adjustments to schedule based on this. So I think we are comfortable in doing this and then making sure we're scheduling after that. That's appropriate. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to say the motion passes. April 13th is canceled. All right, can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved. Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We will adjourn at 6:36. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, guys. All right.